Welcome back to Rarest Photos. Hope you're having a great weekend. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, make sure you join all the different channels. YouTube is Rarest Photos, and Facebook is Elvis Presley Fans Forever, I believe. And then my Instagram is Rarest Photos on YouTube. That's the name of it. So, what are we reading today? We're going to be reading Riley Keough and, well, Lisa Marie Presley's memoir. I do want to say thank you to some folks that have sent me super thanks lately. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's great. And, you know, I'm going to do so. I'll probably do a comment video later on this evening to feature some of your comments. I just found out there's literally thousands and thousands of comments that have been held by Facebook for some reason. And, you know, there's thousands and thousands of comments that get posted. But somebody kind of alerted that to me. I think it was Karen. Said her comments were disappearing, I think. So I'm, maybe I'll get to read some of the older comments, but I will thank you, those that have left me super thanks. Haven't been a lot of y'all that have been able to do that lately, which is fine. You know, when you can, that's great. But I do want to give y'all shout outs when you do. So anyhow, share the video around all the different platforms. If you're seeing it on Facebook, share it, like it, all that good stuff. Share it to your friends, share it to other Elvis pages. And same thing with YouTube. So, and if you make it to the end, put MITTE. Where do we leave off? We left off at page 212 is where we left off in the book. Okay, so that's where we're going to start. After a couple years of living in England, we all went to Hawaii on vacation, and that's when my mom admitted to me that yes, she was addicted to opioids, but that she was planning on going to rehab in Mexico. Me and my brothers and sisters went to Mexico with her. Now, halfway through, though, she made an excuse to cut it short. I'm going to have to go back. The girls are starting school after Easter. What do you mean? I said. Surely you knew this was landing on those dates. Yeah, but they just started. They all have these new friends. They have their routine. I'm not going to pull them out of that. Well, I think everyone would agree that you staying here is more important than my sister's missing a week of school, I said, but she was adamant. She always did what she wanted to do. And my brother and I were angry, but we couldn't change her mind. Back in England, there was a tacit awareness between me, my brother, and Michael Lockwood, I think. Or, yeah, it would have to be Michael Lockwood at that point in time. Keep my feet up here. Oh, my piano. A tacit awareness that maybe my mother didn't want to get sober. She was always extremely honest, but I think she felt that being honest was the virtue rather than changing the behavior. Since she admitted it to us, the honesty seemed to have given her the license to continue with her addiction. Now that we knew, my brother and I noticed things like she would fall asleep too early when we watched movies together. One morning, I was sitting in the kitchen drinking tea, and as my mom came by, she slightly bumped into the wall as she passed. I felt a sense of dread because I knew from her telling me for years and years that if she ever did heroin, it would kill her. She would say, I would never just dabble. If I did it, it would take me out. So, I don't know whether Riley's saying that Lisa was on that or not. I felt a sense of dread because I knew from telling me for years that if she ever did the H drug, you know, it would. Eventually, she realized that moving to England hadn't been such a good idea. She had distanced herself from all of her friends, and the substance abuse had increased along with the loneliness and isolation. Or she needed to be alone to take the substances, or both. This has to be a very difficult thing for Riley. You know, and I know as Elvis fans, we always want to protect Elvis. We want to protect Lisa. But we forget how much Lisa struggled. And part of that is because even though we might be huge Elvis fans, perhaps we didn't follow Lisa as much as we could have or should have. Her life had a different life path. And those of you that are huge Lisa fans can probably answer it better than anybody. How aware were you up until the Golden Globes that she was having major issues, health wise? And she might not have been on any of this stuff, you know, towards the end. I don't. I think she was though. All right, let's continue reading. Her community was gone. She was in the English countryside with 2 babies and no friends. She decided that isolation was the problem. Now, she hated LA and wanted to be closer to Graceland, so she decided she was going to move to Nashville, which was right by me. I remember when she moved here, about 30 miles from me, to be more social and make a new record. See, I felt better. This felt like she had a plan. Danny was going to try to sell the house in England, and she was going to go get off the substances and start over in Nashville. While she looked for Nashville homes, she rented a house in LA on a golf course with a beautiful backyard, a pool, and a movie room where my brother and I would watch Game of Thrones, which is a great show. I gotta say, I can picture Riley and Ben in there watching this. Off topic a little bit, but that's fine. That's what we do here a little bit. Who's watched Game of Thrones? I mean, I think you know, the cinematography is amazing, and if you watch the whole series and you kind of binge it, it's a fantasy thing. Of course, you got to be into that, and you know, um, but speaking of that, another movie. Since we're on the topics of movies here, Legend of the Fall, or Legends of the Fall, was made in 1994. Now, that movie has Brad Pitt in it, the movie star Elvis, you know, back in the day. You know, I mean, he was very, very popular. It had the guy that played Hannibal Lecter, Anthony, what was his name? Y'all know what his name is. That movie, I think, is the greatest movie of all time. Last night, I finally got my wife to watch it. We've been married 18 years. And I was emotional during the whole movie. So if you haven't watched Legends of the Fall, get it, rent it, or if it, if you you can rent it on your smart TV. You can go down and rent it somewhere. But Legends of the Fall with Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins, I think is his name. Oh, devastating, great movie, and I think that I can just see if I had a movie room, which I don't. That's something you watch on a gigantic screen. All right, back to the book. One night, I went downstairs to get a drink, and I noticed that Michael was taking my sisters out of the house to Chuck E. Cheese. It was strange that my mom wasn't going with him. I went upstairs to find her and headed into her room, and I realized she was hiding in her bathroom. "Don't come in," she said. I ignored her. When I entered, I found her crying in the bathtub. She had a black eye and a bloody nose. She'd fallen while on substances. She was sobbing and clearly felt ashamed. She told Michael to take my sisters out so they wouldn't see her face. Now, she knew this had all gone too far, and she went back to the rehab the following week. After that stint, she then flew to Nashville. My mother was slowly falling apart, and my brother was too. Poor Ben. We were drinking a lot, but even when he drank, my brother was jovial and fun. He was somebody who never wanted the night to end the last person awake. So that's different from Elvis's drinking. Ben was jovial and fun and happy. Elvis self-admittedly was angry, which is why he didn't drink. He didn't want to abuse people. He didn't want to hurt people. So interesting to see the similarities from grandfather to grandson. But there was one night at a club when I was around 22, and Ben started pushing me to leave. It didn't feel right. He got me in a taxi and sent me back to the hotel where we were staying for the weekend. Only later did I realize that he'd been doing substances. Something like maybe Molly or the opposite of Pepsi, the one that you get when they don't have the other kind. And he wanted me out of there so he could do whatever he wanted without me finding out. This became a theme in my family. They would do things behind my back, and I was kind of the narc. My mom always said I was too harsh on Ben or too harsh on her, but I think it was simply that I was the only one who wasn't an addict. So I was the downer, said Riley. But I was getting concerned about Ben. One night around that time, he was drinking at the pub, came back late, and fell off his bed and chipped his front tooth. He cried in my mom's arms that night at the bottom of the stairs. Still, he never really, drank during the day. He was a binge drinker, going hard for a couple weeks and then stopping for a long stretch. We got a lot of time with him sober. Now, I would worry about him in the moment, but then the following week or month, he'd be fine. Better than fine. Drinking green juices and working out. Now, it didn't affect my relationship with him, but my mom's addiction meant she was simply not there emotionally a lot of the time. I was thinking about this yesterday. As parents, we focus on our children a lot when they're younger. And then as they get older, we tend to try to maybe not pull back, but a lot of times we're focusing on work, we're focusing on trying to do some stuff for ourselves because when you're a parent, everything, and I mean everything's about your children. Homework, showers, baths, playtime. I'm hungry 9 times a day, 10 times a day. And so here's Ben and Riley over the age 18, 21, 22, 28, still needing their mom to be that present emotional. And of course, we wish she was. Excuse me. But she was trapped in her own worries and problems, and unfortunately, she went that route. So Riley says, when I started talking to a therapist, it was really nice to hear somebody talk back and say, hey, you're not screwed up. Or you need to stop shooting yourself in the foot. I also attended group therapy, and initially I really resisted it. But eventually I started getting close to people, and I realized that they were all... Oh, okay, sorry. Let's go back here. This is Lisa. I always try to tell you guys, this is Riley, this is Lisa. So here's Lisa. When I started talking to a therapist, it was really nice to hear somebody talk back and say, hey, you're not screwed up. Or you need to stop shooting yourself in the foot. I also attended group therapy, and initially I really resisted it. But eventually I started getting close to people. I realized that they were all screwed up as me. I didn't love AA. You talk about substances and alcohol all the time, and it just drives me flipping crazy. I agreed that I'm powerless over it, and I believe that I could stop everything, but the substances were designed to addict you from within. Even if you only take them for 2 or 3 weeks straight, you're going to have some kind of blowback. Your body's going to withdraw. But I don't think it's just physical. I believe that a body is just a body, and the spirit is ultimately inside of a physical shell. And I don't think chemicals have anything to do with the spirit. They make the physical addiction to the body, but the root of the addiction comes from being really unhappy. And that is a spiritual problem, said Lisa. After I left Scientology, I started upping the pills, and I thought, oh my God, I've lost my religion, and it's been my only pavement to walk on, my replacement family. Everything was gone, all my friends, everything, and I knew it was over. And I was so devastated I was using the drugs as a coping mechanism. 2 weeks into her new life in Nashville, this is Riley, my mother was back on substances. And the addiction got worse. She was drinking more, taking more substances. At one point, she found an article that said, Pepsi, the opposite of Pepsi, can help people get off of the opiates. So she began to do that to get off of it, and then she kept going back and forth between substances, thinking they would help her get off one or the other. Sounds more like just an excuse, or maybe the reasonings. I don't know. Her addiction would continue through all the stints in rehab on the basis that she was always in severe and life-threatening withdrawal that no doctor could understand. And she felt that the doctors were too harsh. They wouldn't give her enough of what she needed, so she was doing it herself. Now we turn back to Lisa. It escalated to 80 a day that she took. It took more and more to feel that. And I honestly don't know when your body decides it can't deal with it anymore, but it does decide that at some point. I believe that we're all born innocent and that everyone's nature is innately good, but they get screwed up by their surroundings. And I believe that my brain is different, that I'm an addict. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had all these years in between being a stupid teenager to suddenly get a habit at 40. For a couple of years, it was recreational, and then it wasn't. It was an absolute matter of addiction, withdrawals in the big leagues. If I'd fully run out of substances, the severity of the withdrawal would have left me either in the hospital or gone. My blood pressure would shoot up so high, and I just wanted to check out. It was too painful to be sober. My whole life had blown up, and it felt like one thing after another, and I just couldn't take any more beatings. Perhaps some of y'all have family members or friends that have the same issues, whether it's substances or drinking or what. Vicious cycle. There's a saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And she's trapped in a cycle of insanity there. Riley continues. My mom came up with all kinds of reasons why she didn't want to get off the substances, but I think that one of the most poignant ones was her feeling of shame about becoming an addict with 2 young children. Her parents' standards were so high that I don't think she could ever truly get sober, knowing what she had put my sisters through. The one thing that she'd always really prided herself on was that she was a great mother. She had said, my music wasn't that successful. I'm not good enough, but I'm a great mother. When she started to feel like she wasn't even that she couldn't handle it, she just doubled down. Even when she lived in Nashville, in the depths of her addiction, my mom would often drive the 200 miles southwest of Graceland to sleep in her dad's bed. It seemed like the only place she found any comfort. Often she would take me, Ben, and my sisters upstairs to his room, and we would all sleep in her dad's bed while there were tours going on downstairs. Now, I wish this was a magical time in a magical family place, but the truth of it was she was in the house desperate to feel protected, desperate to connect with her father. She would lie in his bed, lie on his floor, anything to feel some comfort. It was the feeling of going to church when all is lost and saying, please, Jesus, help me. And every time she went, she'd point out to an empty plot of grass where she would eventually be laid to rest next to her father in the meditation garden. Now, when I was back in LA, I got a call from my mother. There's something wrong with me physically, she said. You need to come to LA, I said. We need to get you to a hospital. Well, that began a long text chain between me and my brother in LA and my mom in Nashville, excerpts of which I offer here. So here's some of the text messages. Mom, this is Mom. This is Lisa. Please come get me out of here ASAP. We can find a trailer or something. We can get to California. I'm not kidding. I need you both. I don't have the strength to leave. And I'm not well in any way. My body and my legs are swollen. I spit up blood. My ankles are twisted. My lips are bleeding. I throw up everything but yogurt. My feet are so swollen I'm scared. That's a horrible text from Lisa. Riley says, you need to go to the doctor now. You need to get checked up and go get vitamins. Go to the doctor now. This is not okay. And then Ben, his text message. She doesn't want to go to a doc. There's a doc that will go to the house. That's the best move right now. Then Riley says in a text message, Christy and Lockwood are both saying you won't go to the doctor. Now, Christy is Lisa's mom's assistant. You need to go to the doctor, Riley said. Then Lisa said, not a doctor here. Tennessee has strong laws. They'll take away my babies. Riley continues. For drugs? Who cares? You're going to die, Mom. You just need a doctor to check your vitals. Ben says, I don't care if the devil himself came to earth and said he was a doctor, as long as he's a doctor. Mom, Lisa says, I have my doctors in LA that I want to see. And Riley says, can I please get you an RV to drive you to LA tomorrow? Ben says, get in an RV and come in here. Or come here, is what Ben says. Then Riley says, Mom, I'm booking an RV in Tennessee tomorrow. Ben will fly to Nashville, go with you and the babies. Ben says, answer, Mom. Mom, answer my effing phone call. I've called you 21 times. If you don't want to talk to me, that's fine, but I have a plan. Then Riley said, Mom, Ben has a good plan. You'll take an RV with the babies. And then Lisa finally responded, where do we stay? Riley says, I'll find you somewhere. Call me, says Ben. Call me. Call me. Call me. Call me. Call me. And he keeps texting. Call me. Call me. Call me. Call me. So that's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 call me's. It's a time to reflect. Think about what Riley and Ben went through. Now Lisa, when her daddy died, was young, 9 years old. These are adults. I think 22 and 28. All right. Back to Lisa. So that was the text thread. Now we're back to her tapes. I had done a bunch of, I don't know, major thing. And a shot of tequila and a bunch of substances. All that was mixed with stress. I was really unhappy and my body was not doing well. Riley and Ben wanted to get me to a doctor. Everyone wanted to get me to a doctor, but I wouldn't go to one in Nashville. So Riley sent Ben to get me because my assistant Christy had told her that a couple of times she thought I had gone, that I'd looked like she'd passed away on the bed. Ben showed up and he, the girls, and I took a tour bus all the way from Nashville to LA. We drove because I wanted to do the opposite of Pepsi the whole time. There's Pepsi way at the restaurant, and then there's Coca-Cola, right? But not the good version. We're talking about the dry version. I wanted to do that the whole time and couldn't do it if I was on the airplane. I didn't think I could get through airport security. Now, the tour bus had 6 beds and a bedroom in the back, a kitchen. When we arrived in LA, I went straight in to see the head of Cedars of Sinai. I was at 30 heartbeats per minute. I lay there scared to death. My echocardiogram came back bad. I was literally losing my heart. My heart was dying, just in pieces. Back to Riley. When she arrived in LA from Nashville, my mom's head and face were twice their normal size. Not twice the normal size, but still. I mean, you think about it, it's probably very swollen. Head and face were twice their normal size. She went straight from the emergency room to the ICU. She was in heart failure. No, it was chaos. And in the midst of it, she told Michael Lockwood she was leaving him. It took about a week for her to start to recover. Now, once she was feeling a bit better, she was desperate to find somewhere safe, somewhere gated to live. She repeatedly said that asked if we could find somewhere on Mountain Gate, where we'd lived when I was little, where we'd lost Jacko the pug, but where we'd also been so happy. Now, let's go back to the part where she said she was leaving Michael Lockwood. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Lisa, while she was living in Nashville, filed charges against Michael Lockwood that he had young, very bad on his computer, and I think of the daughters is what was accused. Have y'all heard that? And Priscilla took Michael Lockwood's side. Perhaps if there's reality to that, if it was real, whether it was Harper family or something else, I don't with legalities and stuff that gets leaked out, but there was something bad supposedly of an illegal on his computer. So if it was true, and then Priscilla gaslighted her and nobody believed her and she got deeper into the substances, well, that would make some sense. I'm not trying to make an excuse for Lisa, but I'm just looking at the timeline of things that were going on around that time. My mother had changed business management at the time, and somehow all of her credit cards had been frozen. She had nothing. Everything was a mess. She went to court-ordered rehab in LA, submitted to court-ordered P-test, the whole bit. The rehab gave her Suboxone and other things like Seroquel and gabapentin to wean her off the substances, but they only served to make her even more that, because whatever the normal dose was, she would somehow get 5 times the amount from the doctors. When I would go visit her, she didn't know who I was even. I remember sitting with her while she tried to light her cigarette for a full 5 minutes. Unsuccessfully. It was as if it was all happening in slow motion, and the cigarette was never closer than a foot away from the lighter. That's really out of it. I mean, that's almost where, and I'm sure that Riley has tortured herself, and perhaps while Ben was still alive, he probably tortured herself, but that's where somebody needs to be submitted. For months. But maybe that doesn't even work. You're always afraid that you're going to destroy your relationship, that you're going to make it worse. You don't get much worse than that right there. While in rehab, Mom had decided to get bariatric surgery. Her entire life she'd been harassed for being bigger. The surgery was something that she'd always wanted. It was a strange time to decide to have surgery in rehab. She wasn't done with her program, and I remember worrying that it was a way to stay on medication a little bit longer. I didn't feel she was ready to be sober, and if you have any experience with addicts, you'll know that When I questioned her about the timing of the surgery, it turned into a massive fight. That was a dead giveaway. Then she removed me from the guest list at the hospital. You know that's the surgery that ultimately ended her life, right? If you don't, well, complications from that, an infection or something, is what happened. So there's no dates in this book, but I think that she had that bariatric surgery 6 months prior to her passing, maybe? I don't know. Now let me know in the comments if you know, all right? Let your fellow subscribers know. See, in the midst of her addiction, I was a narc to her. I was Pookie, her regular name for me. I was seldom, if ever, Riley. Not a pirate. I don't know what that means. I don't understand that line. I was Pookie, her regular name for me. I was seldom, if ever, Riley. Not a pirate. I often found myself calling out her attempts to best the system. I would contact the doctors behind her back and tell them that they were overprescribing. But she was Lisa Marie Presley, so she'd almost always prevail. And she was furious that I tried to intervene. God, isn't this so much like, in some ways, her daddy? Bending doctors, anyone to her will, was a celebrity phenomenon that she was very aware of. She often told me that the issue with her father and with Michael Jackson was that everyone around them always just said yes. But of course, she didn't see the issue the same way when she was doing it herself. In the throes of her addiction, if you wanted to stop her, you were out. To me, she would say, "You don't understand. You're not an addict." Thank goodness, Riley, at this point in time in this book, and hopefully still, she's not. You know, when you're around something like that, not just her mom, but her brother, it makes you want to stay away from those things. Or it makes you drown yourself in them. And Riley seems, I know there's a fine line between, a lot of y'all don't like Riley. But think about where she came from. Think about what she's achieved. Think about the pain that she feels associated to the Presley name. As some people say, the Presley curse. You almost can't blame her for trying to find a little bit of emotional distance. You know, makes me kind of worry, and I know it makes some of y'all kind of worry about the future of Graceland, future of Elvis Presley Enterprises, the heart and soul of it, not just the business side of it, that Lisa tried to keep the heart and soul in it. Soon she was out of rehab, but incredibly depressed. She'd been through another separation, and she felt like she had nothing to live for, nothing to look forward to, and, you know, she was on a bunch of medications that left her numb. All she could really do was sit on the couch and watch TV. For her to be able to see my sisters, there had to be a court-certified monitor present. Okay, so let's talk about that again. Priscilla took Michael Lockwood's side. I think the girls were with Priscilla. Now, if it's truly about the substances and all that stuff, I think we all get it. But if she was trying to medicate herself because she was in a toxic, horrible relationship with somebody that was, as she accused him of, you know, as I mentioned before, and she felt powerless over it somehow, then it's bad, you know? So, without a court-certified monitor present, Riley says, I was that monitor. So for my sisters to move back in with her, my mom had to live with me. And as my brother lived with her, I got my brother as a bonus. So my mom, my sisters, and my brother moved into a 2,000 square foot house in the valley. Then my dad moved in too. It seemed like it could have been good for everyone to be together, but it felt like the end of things. We'd had this amazing, colorful, beautiful, abundant, fun, joyful life, but in that house it took a turn and got unbearably dark. for all of us. That's where we're going to stop today. Hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend. Please do something good for yourself. Whether it's this video, getting out fresh air, taking a walk, enjoying a hobby. TCB.